Welcome, Ultras and Switchy Sisters alike, to episode 28 of the weekly episodic gaming-adjacent live-stream podcast show. This is Switch to Ultra. Back on Mondays, always Mondays, never not Mondays. Pokemon Legends ZA releases in 3 days. I have beaten Donkey Kong Bonanza now, and Pikmin are hiding within YouTube videos. Welcome to the Switch to Ultra family. I'm your co-parent, BH Ultra.
And I'm your co-parent, Switchy.
I know it's been a little bit for you. I don't know if you've gone back to play anymore, but I think now is probably the perfect opportunity to stake our thoughts on Donkey Kong Bonanza. As it is, I mean, this is also just another thought. In my opinion, the most important Nintendo game of 2025. I think that's going to be like their main, what people will remember about this year, other than the console launch itself.
I would agree. I think, at least for me, this is like so far the first game that seems like not just sales, but also critically and culturally like a triumph. Because I would say Mario Kart World is close, but because I think it's not as theatric, for lack of a better word, I think like Donkey Kong is clearly, I think, the artistic highlight of Nintendo this year, at least in my opinion, though I think once Metroid Prime 4 is out, it might be a little bit more contested.
Yeah. I was going to say that, building off of that, initially, like, my first thought was like, oh, well, Donkey Kong has impressed me more than Mario Kart, and Mario Kart is just fun. And that is a point I want to make, but as I was, like, formulating that and thinking that, I'm like, oh, but Donkey Kong is also fun, which I think is the most important part. I find it more fun than I find Mario Kart. I think the fun of Mario Kart is more contextual or context based, depending on where you are, what your situation is. Not saying that playing Mario Kart single player isn't as fun, but I feel like I have maybe, because I try to, as I started streaming, as I became an adult, which happened around the same time, more, more, more so than not, is to try and expand my palette when it comes to games. Granted, that still often kind of defaults to Nintendo games because there's just a lot of them. But I grew up playing Smash Bros. Brawl, and then Smash 4, where the only games I had played that had characters I knew, like going into Brawl the first time, like, okay, I know the Pokemon and I know Mario. All the other characters, for the longest time after just playing Smash Bros., they were just Smash Bros. Characters to me. Whereas when I started streaming, I played all the Pikmin games, I played most of the 2D Metroid games, a little bit of 3D Metroid, Bayonetta, stuff like that. That's why that really is the purpose of the show, right? It initially facilitated a console launch, and a console did launch. And regardless of how I feel about the console launch, regardless, I knew that when there was going to be a new Nintendo console, and I thought this back in like 2018, now that I had a platform, or I wanted a platform, that's when I really, really wanted it, that I wanted to be a part of the conversation, and I wanted to archive it, and I wanted to experience it. So when a console launch happens, I wanted to get everything. I wanted to get the console, get all the peripherals, get all the games that they had, and now I'm playing through all the Switch 2 exclusives. And while I think because of that, we sort of like up these launches in our head, and I feel like I've been saying this a lot, but specifically when it comes to Mario Kart, it's the same thing where I wanted to, because I'm a streamer and because I'm an adult now, and now I can like think back to all the previous Mario Karts, and there's this sort of childlike nostalgia or just whimsy. Not to say those games aren't bad, but there's a certain level of enjoyability that comes to that sort of community. But with those games, I was expanding and hyperbolizing and mythologizing me playing Mario Kart in my head. And then when I genuinely think back to like playing the games by myself, it really was whenever a game launches, I play it for like a couple days and then I stop playing Mario Kart unless I have friends over. And that kind of just is the cycle of Mario Kart. And it happened to me again with Mario Kart World, and I was like, oh man, I guess this one's like worse than the other ones. And then it clicked, and I realized like, oh wait, no, I played it about the same amount I played like Mario Kart 7 or Mario Kart 8 when they first came out. They just didn't have DLC.
Yeah, I mean, same. I think that like, and I think that's because, I mean, I say Donkey Kong is the triumph, but I think it's because games like I feel like in a lot of ways, whether this is a good thing or a bad thing, when people talk about like quote unquote the best game ever, which is a very I mean, that's a very loose kind of term. I mean, there's obviously room for subjectivity there. I don't really believe there's an objective answer. But one thing I think you'll consistently find among people who are invested in that question and like to talk about it is that the games that are talked about are always like single player narrative experiences.
Yeah.
Like almost never. No, almost. I think part of it, now that I think about it, is that like multiplayer games, there's always an element of frustration.
Yeah.
Now that I think about it, because for example, like, I mean, I fortunately spared myself from ever getting super invested in like multiplayer games, or at least in recent years. But I remember how much, you know, the love-hate relationship I had with Overwatch, for example. Just like pulling my hair out, you know, trying to get good at that game when I wasn't, or whatever. I think a lot of people have those kinds of experiences with multiplayer games, and because of that, there's always that sort of frustrated relationship. Even the most like dedicated fans or people who dedicate their lives to those games always have their qualms. I think because there's not as much of a competitive streak, that whole like axis of critique isn't really as prevalent for single player games. But also, I think this is the main point. I think, you know, the narrative, the adventure, that always seems to be more important to people than like a game that's fun to play with friends. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, I mean, that's up to debate. But that's why, you know, like Ocarina of Time, Half-Life 2, Mario Galaxy, even like those games excuse me, I mean, that's why Zelda in general, like Zelda's like infamous for always getting 10s from IGN, but I feel like Zelda like perfectly encapsulates that like first person narrative exploration adventure game, which seems to be critically the ideal for video games, at least, you know, if you ask the critics.
Yeah. Well, that's the point of like an objective reviewer, that it doesn't really take into account human error. And that applies to
Mm-hmm.
everything, honestly, that we want to believe that we watch TV or watch movies or play video games in a closed ecosystem, in a bubble, and we are being as objective as possible. But maybe when you see a movie that you would have liked, there was like someone annoying sitting behind you, or you had a bad seat, or when you were watching it at home, there was a glare, or your TV wasn't loud enough, or something was going on, or you had expectations going into it, which shape the way you feel. And I feel like this has happened several times throughout this year specifically, where I will have a normal amount, a decent amount of excitement for something, whether it be a movie, a show, or a game. And then I will hear right before it comes out that it is awful. That is the worst thing ever.
Uh-huh.
And then I'll go into it and it won't be the worst thing ever. So I'll like it more than I probably would have otherwise because I'm like, oh, that wasn't that bad. Like as I've said on the show before, that on Sunday nights we host watch parties in the Discord server, in the BH Ultra Patreon Discord server, and we're watching the shows as they've come out, and we have finished like King of the Hill, the new Gumball season. We're wrapping up a lot of stuff, and we just finished Peacemaker because the Peacemaker season 2 finale aired on Friday, and I was so worried because that weekend, like the episode came out Thursday night, and I wasn't gonna watch it until Sunday night, and all I was seeing on my feed are people like lambasting it and saying like, "Oh man, this finale is so disappointed," and I was like I was waiting for the point. I was like preparing, like, okay, this is gonna be awful, like I need to like emotionally or mentally prepare for it. And then I watched it and it was just kind of like, it was fine. But I think the main thing, my take on that Peacemaker finale, is it's weird in context, right? It is, again, we're reviewing it in the context. The context is that the penultimate episode, the episode that aired last Thursday night, actually would have acted as a much better finale and a cliffhanger. And the episode that aired Thursday night, a couple days ago, kind of feels like the pilot episode to a third season. So it seems like they just kind of shifted everything back. But the thing is, I think James Gunn said that there isn't going to be a Peacemaker season 3. And I think that's where the conundrum comes in. That's where the disappointment comes in. Because I think I tweeted this out, that Peacemaker season 2 and the episode right before the finale acts as like a perfect middle season in like a 3-season series. The only reason the finale is bad is because it is literally the finale of Peacemaker. Now that that character's like gone, like he'll be in the DCU to some degree, and I like how consolidated the DCU is. That's mostly Superman stuff before it gets way too bloated. I thought for the longest time, because I allowed myself to be detached a little bit when it came to Cape Flicks, that I was like, oh yeah, I didn't like care about the Marvel stuff that much. I would just watch the movies, and every time I watched a new movie, I was like, yeah, whatever, it was fine. It was like Spy Kids, I guess. That's my barometer, is they all feel like Spy Kids. And they're getting more and more Spy Kids and more Shark Boy and Lava Girl. That
Is the movie Spy Kids or Shark Boy and Lava Girl?
it's a very good movie, sir. That going into it, I'm like, oh yeah, I don't care, whatever. But like, genuinely liking Peacemaker and also genuinely liking the Superman movie, I'm like, oh no, this is what it feels like. Like, I am excited to see this going forward. And I've been on track of like watching all of these shows that will stop airing for like a season. They go on hiatus for like a year or maybe 2 years, and then they'll come back. But because all these shows are happening concurrently, there's always something to watch. Anyway, my point is that we're never reviewing things objectively. There is no such thing as an objective review at all, like anywhere. Because then you're just
don't think it's like often interesting. I mean, when you think about it, even stuff that I try and be fair to, so much of the way I talk about it is informed by like the reputation it has, or like how people might perceive it. I was thinking about that when you were just talking, is like, I've done a couple reviews on like old kind of direct to channel like kids movie. So like Lemonade Mouth was a DC, not DC, Disney Channel.
well, that is
so, yeah,
DC.
It was DCOM, yeah. And then I did the Fred movie, and even though the review in some ways was like sort of positive, because I think it's just like, oh, this is like a silly movie. I mean, it's not hurting anyone. It's just kind of fun. It's
you
made
also
for
have
kids.
like an emotional attachment to them, so there's context
Yeah, and
there.
and like, I mean, there's no one looking at movies like that just came out this year. Even if I like don't try and be super nostalgia blind, I feel like there's still the movie has like an identity uh in the eyes of critics that is based on it being a Disney Channel movie. You know, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, people don't really think of those movies as like particularly good. I mean, good by normal standards. I mean, they're kind of like lower budget films made for kids, usually starring Disney Channel like uh stars.
Mm-hmm.
They're, relatively simple premises. It's not really meant to, mean that much to people. And I think I think a lot of the times, if you kind of hold it up to what people usually see as, peak cinema or whatever, it doesn't stand up that well. But that doesn't mean I'm like shitting on it while I'm watching it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's just, because it's a Disney Channel original movie, I talk about it differently than if it was, the biggest movie this year. So like that in itself, I feel like kind of proves your point that, everything is kind of informed by the discourse surrounding it, you know?
Yeah. The first video I released this year was about like another year of movie musicals because I've been alternating each year talking about. Or I guess no, I talked about more movie musicals last January, and that's just the thing I start the year off with now, wrapping up the previous year. And a lot of that video was me talking about how much I actually liked Joker Folie à Deux,
Yeah, I remember that.
and big upping it and defending it. But like if you ask me, not that my opinions changed, but like objectively, or I guess there is no objective, but like from a review standpoint, when people are like, "Oh man, you really love this movie," and I'm like, "Yeah, I like this movie. It's like a 3 out of 5." But I think the issue is the reason I went in with such vigor for that one is because so many people hated that movie, and I really just
Yeah.
did not get it at all. So even
Yeah.
that, like, not to like, I've been accused of being a contrarian. I choose to believe that's not
I
what
don't
it
think you
is.
are.
I
I
hope
really
not.
don't think you are.
Yeah, but like I do think that does factor into discussion of it. Like it's impossible to, because the way I saw that movie is I think last October or last September I was working on the horror game video. So I like legitimately just locked myself in my room. Like I was busy doing that the whole time. So I didn't see
Uh-huh.
movies throughout. I guess it was October. I didn't watch any movies in October in the theater. And then November I was making up for lost time and shady websites or proper websites, either way. I was watching all the movies from the previous month that released in theaters, but I was watching them at home. So there was
Uh-huh.
no possible context where I could watch that movie a month after it came out, after everyone already formed their opinion and loudly spoke about it. There's no way I could watch that movie in a bubble. Maybe aside from just not having internet.
You
So
like
the
live in a box,
yeah, the
you know?
context is always going to shape it. And
Yeah,
we're
and well, and I'll say this. I mean, you're kind of making this exact point, but I'll double up. Like, if you if the reviews of that movie were tepid all throughout, like no one really had a super strong opinion on it, I doubt you would have talked about it totally differently.
yeah,
And that's not a dig at you. I don't think it's like you should talk about it like a certain way.
right.
It's just because of the critical panning and the outroar or the uproar the film caused. I think that you not really hating it or enjoying parts of it inherently kind of is more novel to the discussion as a whole than it
Mhm.
would be otherwise.
There's a lot to that, but that is, I guess, in the context of what we're talking. Well, I guess that more applied to Mario Kart than it did Donkey Kong. I think
Hmm.
that because I didn't fully, obviously, didn't 100% the game, but I finished all of the layers and then got through the ending. So this is obviously going to be spoilers for Donkey Kong Bonanza. Obviously, I knew that K. Rool was in it, right? Because I had known
Hmm.
that weeks ahead because people have been posting about it. And now I know more or less what the buffer of spoilers is. It's different with
Hmm.
different games. I think with Donkey Kong, it was a little bit more, not restrictive, but people were a little bit more respectful. Whereas now, the schedule I'm working with on stream, I do this podcast on Monday, and then I'm going to keep playing the weekly GTA series on Wednesday. And I think tomorrow I should finish Chibi Robo. That's another thing that lines up with the year is I allowed a bid to happen on stream last year where people would donate money and put it in the name of the game they wanted me to play. And it landed on Chibi Robo. So that meant I was either going to stream it for 11 streams, which is 33 hours, or I would fully complete it. And last week I reached stream 11, but there's only like 2 more stickers I need to get in the game, which that might not even take a full stream. But I think I can fully complete that game. But that's another, I don't know if it's context per se, or maybe just the way games have changed. Like, I don't know if it's still, if there are points that would have still been frustrating had I played it when it came out. So what I'm getting at is like the points that frustrated me the most in playing Chibi Robo or just like there are specific climbing moments. Like there isn't so much a climb button as much as there is like you need to walk up to something, and then when the exclamation mark appears above you, you either hit A or you just automatically climb. And sometimes he just doesn't snap the ledge or the camera gets stuck. And those are the points that really frustrated me. But I don't think that makes it a bad game. But I was thinking about it like, oh man, this is the kind of stuff that would be fixed in like a remaster. And I sort of roll my eyes whenever people like play any old game and they're like, oh, this needs a remaster. Because I do like, I mean, the reason I bought it was to play it on original GameCube hardware. And then it ironically was added to the Nintendo Switch Online GameCube feature. We haven't had a lot of Nintendo classics. I think they've rebranded them. I think people still call them NSO games. A lot of NSO games released this year. We had the GameCube ones, and then we haven't had an NES one released. And I think the only N64 game was Forsaken 64 because we were looking at the blurry N64 box arts in the background, and that made a big stink. I mean, this was announced recently. Is that 3 more Super Nintendo games are coming to SNES Online, and funnily enough, one of them is a Bubsy game. Where truly Bubsy's having a resurgence.
I didn't notice that. That's interesting. Bubsy being put on is kind of hilarious. This Bubsy revival is kind of surprising to me.
Yeah. I kind of want to... my rule was that I couldn't start a new game on stream until I finished other stuff. But that's what I was getting at, is that once I finish Chibi Robo, I'll have Thursdays and Tuesdays open. But throughout October, that's only like... Because November, I think I'm going to stream a lot more because I'll have the time off a little more. That's like maybe 5 streams, right? Thursday and then Tuesday, Thursday, Tuesday, Thursday. Yeah, like 5 streams. And one of them will be longer because it's the start of the game. But then each of them are just going to be like normal stream length. That now that I know what I know about both Mario Kart and Donkey Kong Bonanza. Like Bonanza, I could play... It could take me 2 months to play that game, and then spoilers start happening. Whereas for Pokemon, I'm a little bit more worried. Not that there's anything that could really surprise me when it comes to ZA, but for me, like, I think Pokemon has a little bit of a harder time, and maybe not the series itself, but the way people talk about it online. Like, that shit's going to get data mined immediately. Whatever is in the game is going to be data mined.
I
did see that.
People already have copies or are emulating it. I don't exactly know what.
Twitch chat says people spoiled one of the megas. I'm gonna cry. I will cry if you guys talk about leaks. Just saying. There's no leaks we're gonna talk about here, but we've been talking about mega leaks for like months now.
Yeah, so, not in like detail though. There's now like videos and like pictures
and
stuff.
Okay. So yeah, we've just been looking at that list. I
saw like 1 or 2, but I'm avoiding them.
Okay, I think the last leak I saw was the Starmie one we looked at, where it's just standing upright. But I forget what my point was. Oh yeah, it's just context of like when you play them, and reviews don't really take into account human error. And if we're talking about games I've wanted to play but have held off on, something like Silk Song, I did see a lot of discourse with that as well, of people either saying it's a good or bad game because of the difficulty. And I do think that it depends on what the difficulty is, right? So like with Chibi Robo, when all that stuff was frustrating, that was not the way the game was meant to be played. That the camera getting stuck is not intentional. And also, not that it matters, but like by next week's pod, we'll have a little bit of Legends ZA, but also I will have fully completed Chibi Robo. So if anyone wants to hear about Chibi Robo, it technically released on the Switch 2 this year. But my point being that there is difficulty where the controls fight the player, where what you're doing is not translating to the screen, and there's difficulty where the game is simply just difficult, and if you do it over and over again, you will eventually be able to overcome that challenge. And that being said, I don't think that difficulty is like a fair barometer to judge a game, whether it's like it's saying a game is bad because it's too difficult. Because if a camera or just anything in a game, if a mechanic wasn't working the way it's supposed to be working, I wouldn't even call that difficulty. I'd just say like, oh yeah, the game's kind of busted. But then again, like I don't think I'm good at video games, but I've been playing them my whole life. I never stopped playing video games. I have friends that I've like played video games with, and they would get frustrated when they weren't doing too good, and I realized like, oh yeah, like this isn't a thing that just comes easy to everyone. But my point being, these reviews don't really factor in human error, and there's a lot of that when it comes to difficulty, because more humans could have more error. Twitch chat says, I heard they make you walk back to the boss after you lose to it in Silksong. That makes you not want to lose as much. I was thinking this when I was fighting the final boss in Bonanza, if we can continue talking about Bonanza, that I thought initially when I was playing the game, obviously, like, going into it, I'm like, oh, this is Odyssey. Like, this is the new 3D Mario. Granted, going to the credits, I actually don't think it's the 3D Mario team, so I could have been... I could have been incorrect and led astray, either or, the blind leading the blind. But it seems like it is an entirely different team that did work on the older, like, GameCube Donkey Kong rhythm games. It is very much a love letter to Donkey Kong. And you see that a lot in the final section of the game where you get to use all of your abilities. Anyway, when I first started it, I'm like, oh, this is exactly like Odyssey. And the first thing I noticed that was different is that it actually had lives where Odyssey does not. In Mario Odyssey, when you die, you lose some coins, and then you spawn back. And I think that works for a game like Odyssey, where it sort of incentivizes you to be bold and constantly, like, physically throw your character off an edge. You know, like, throw caution to the wind. Whereas in Bonanza, not only are there lives, but the gold matters so much more. King K. Rool, King of Rot, I was legitimately screaming and sweating because I had 3 hearts left, and I knew that if I died, I would have gone back to the beginning of the fight. But I don't think that's poor game design. I find that actually really exciting. I've been playing Minecraft with my wife as of late, and every time we play and something goes wrong, she a big puppy dog eyes asks me to turn on keep inventory. But for me, I know it doesn't apply to everyone because, you know, some people just want to have a more fun time while playing Minecraft. But to me, that is Minecraft. Like, the stakes of losing everything you collected upon death, that is the difficulty to me. And that's what I like about playing survival Minecraft, is the aspect that the game is sort of scary. It almost reads like a horror game, that the stakes are higher than any other horror game because if you die, it directly affects you. You lose all your shit. And I like that difficulty. And I wouldn't even say that that makes a game worse or better. I just think that is intrinsic to the experience of the game. So what I'm getting at, Twitch chat, is that punishing a character, punishing the player for dying, depending on how annoying it is to do the same thing over and over again, I don't think that's necessarily a mark against a game.
No, it shouldn't be. I mean, here's the thing. You know, this is one thing that I'm, like, surprisingly opinionated about, and I've like gotten into, like, pretty heated fights about this, so I might leave this pod in a bad mood, actually. But one thing I don't really subscribe to is the idea that game designers should have to introduce, like, alternative difficulty modes or just kind of like easy modes and stuff. And, you know, I mean, actually, you know, if people want to do that, that's totally fine. But, you know, I don't necessarily think I subscribe to the belief that every game should be completable by everyone without having to, like, work for it. I just don't believe that, not even a little bit. I mean, because here's the thing, like,
let me stop you 1 second. I just want to see
right,
if we're genuinely muted or not. Because sometimes people just don't refresh their... Okay, on...
Hello?
Okay, I think it's muted on Twitch, but it's probably fine on the YouTube stream. Let me check the YouTube stream.
I just don't believe...
Okay, YouTube stream is fine. All right, continue. It'll be in the VOD.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I like, you know, you get the argument a lot that, well, okay, so I just don't believe that, yeah, every game should be doable by everyone somehow. And maybe that sounds like exclusive or elitist, but, you know, I think part of a game is the challenge, is the you know, the trying hard.
I think part of it too is that, like, it's not impossible to get good at a game. Like, I think given enough time, anyone can get good at any game. So it's not even like, oh, it is impossible for this person to beat this game, I guess they can't play the game. It's more that, yeah, this game is more difficult for this person, so this person just needs to try a little hard. Not to sound like I'm telling people to pull themselves up by their bootstraps, but, you know, it's video games. It's not that serious. I think anyone can get good at any game given enough time.
Yeah, I mean, you know, when the argument is discussed from, like, the lens of accessibility, I'm more sympathetic to it, because I guess, you know, some people, they are disabled and, like, they literally cannot play games to a certain extent, like, just because either like maybe they have like nerve problems or whatever, like they can't move their hands in the way that the game kind of requires them to. And in that sense, I am a little sympathetic in that way. But I mean, like, I still would argue that I don't think a game should have to be necessarily accessible to everyone. At least, well, okay, that sounds kind of that's not the best way of wording it, but like regarding difficulty, I just don't really think that's necessary. I mean, if once again, if like a company or developer makes a judgment call that, hey, you know what, we want this to be a thing that anyone can play somehow, and that seems to be the common move these days. You usually will find most games, especially Nintendo games, they'll always have, the assist mode or whatever, which, I think people used to be cynical about it, but I kind of think about kids that can like actually finish games now as opposed to just be stuck on them for years like I used to be when I was really little. I mean, I kind of get that, but like, I think that for a lot of people, I think, beating the game should is in itself part of the artistic experience. And that's actually part of the thing that kind of bothers me, is that often like people will often kind of perpetuate the idea that the literal difficulty and challenge of a game itself is somehow disconnected from the artistic experience of it, which I think is kind of bonkers when you think about it, because like, I mean, I guess an extreme example is like a game like Getting Over It with Bennett Foddy. That's a game that's intentionally sort of, frankly, what's the word? Obtuse in its controls and in its messaging. It's
That's
kind
my
of
thing,
like,
is that like I don't think difficulty and frustration are necessarily hand in hand. Like, I think there can be difficulty in a game that. What I'm getting at is that if a game is frustrating, is it because the game is intending to be frustrating, or is it not intending to be frustrating? And I think that's where I view like whether or not it's a mark against the game or not.
yeah. I mean, I think like really just like obnoxious things. That is different, and I think that's why a lot of people, and I think that's why a lot of developers nowadays are pretty willing to kind of create alternate modes, like basically insta-win modes, because I think it's often sort of a way of just avoiding that criticism if possible. I think one of the funniest examples is Marvel's Spider-Man, which has these like little mini games. I think during the Mary Jane segments, where you kind of like hack into shit or whatever, and you can just skip them. You can just press like the square button or some shit and just skip them, which is like, at that point, I'm like worried you don't even think your game is good. It's like, oh yeah, we have this like mini game, but you don't have to do it.
Yeah, what's even the
That in
point?
itself is like, really? But I think that in some ways is a logical conclusion, because I imagine not everyone's really down for that mini game, and it just like, oh, if you don't like it, just don't play it, I guess. I don't know. It's something about that feels kind of silly. Whether maybe it's a good idea or not, I don't know. But it does feel kind of silly for that to be just like part of it. It's like, oh yeah, you don't have to do this if you don't want to. It's like,
Right.
okay.
Ultimately,
I guess,
I
yeah.
like Donkey Kong Bonanza. I think that's
Yeah.
my game
Yeah, I
of the
know.
year.
No, I think it definitely is mine. It's funny. I got spoiled on K. Rool
Yes.
effectively because of the K. Rool conspiracy guy.
Yeah, shout out Skips.
I think yeah, Skips or whatever. I like on the day the game came out, he was like, oh, and that he just tweeted that, I think, and I'm like, okay, well, there's clearly something. And to be fair, all things considered, I think the odds were in favor of there being something, because why do they have these like crocodile skeleton enemies in the game and not K. Rool? Like, imagine if they really did that. Like, there was just no K. Rool in the game. Like,
Well,
I think people would have been furious, including me.
I think it could have gone either way, because I feel like we circle back to this a lot. Whenever there's like a wild conspiracy, if it doesn't happen, the result is always saying like, oh, well, yeah, of course, we were just playing. And if it does happen, it's easy to say like, oh, it was obvious. But when it comes to Nintendo
Yeah.
or like anything, when you're getting the hopes up, it could legitimately just go either way. Like, I wouldn't put it past them.
Hmm.
But overall, the experience, like, other than me playing it the most amount of any game this year, it's. I think someone asked me before, like, on stream, whether or not I think it's better or like it more than Odyssey. And I think it is different. I think Odyssey, ironically enough, despite it also being a collectathon, is a little bit more linear. That's not a bad thing. I think that the individual courses and kingdoms in Odyssey stand out a little more because they really just can be anything. And that's one thing I'll
Mhm.
say when it comes to like Mario Sunshine and Mario Galaxy, despite Mario Galaxy being one of my favorite games, is that when you're going for an overarching theme, with your game, it doesn't really allow the individual levels to be unique. Like, there are some differences in Mario Sunshine, like, oh, this is the volcano one, this is the ghost hotel, but all of them are still beach themed. Like, there's only so far you can go from the
Yeah.
original source material. Whereas, and I don't think Bonanza like kneecaps itself by being a game where you dig downward, but I do think Odyssey has a little bit more freedom when it comes to that. And I think that I always said before that Odyssey, even if I beaten it, that it was the game I would always load up just to run around because it feels so satisfying to do that, just to like literally just explore, not even accomplish anything, just platform as your character. And I will say
Mhm.
that DK himself doesn't control as smoothly as Mario and Odyssey, but I think Donkey Kong Bonanza is one of the most, even like rivaling Minecraft, is one of the most satisfying games to play, where every time I'll put a waypoint and be like, oh, I'll go in that direction, I'll get distracted like 5 times over just digging or trying to destroy something else. The game just
Mhm.
feels so good to play.
No, definitely, I agree. I think regarding that, for me personally, I'd probably decide in favor of Odyssey. I think just because um I think the challenges you get in the game because of like the thing because of the because it's built more for platforming than like destructible environments are just more fun for me personally. I think I like more old school 3D platforming as opposed to things when the when shit's destructible. I think that, I mean, that's not necessarily not fun, but I think I just my Odyssey scratches the itch a little more because it's more about kind of movement, I would say. Although there's still some cool shit you can do in Bonanza, but I don't know. I think Bonanza, in some ways, you could argue it's more open ended, and you'd be kind of right. But I think I kind of like the fact that Odyssey, it feels like whatever you're doing, there is like a solution to the problem you have, and because of that, I feel like the solutions are more interesting generally. I don't know.
Hmm.
I think that's more so, like kind of a bone to pick I have with like early Bonanza, because I think later on the later levels, there's always like some kind of cool twist with the environment that makes it pretty fun. But I feel like, the first couple layers, um, the challenges aren't really that like engrossing to me.
Yeah, and everything you need, maybe this is the exact same point you were making, but everything, like your Mario in Mario Odyssey that you have at the very end of the game and the very start of the game is the same Mario. Like you're always,
Yeah.
you have everything in your kit. Whereas I don't think I'm not as eager to restart Bonanza as I am Mario. Although it would be fun to like upgrade your skill tree again. But because there's a skill tree there, it makes it a fundamentally different experience. Where Odyssey is one that I would easily start over from the beginning, and Bonanza is one that I'll traverse around, I'll run around. Ironically, because this is the first Donkey Kong game in like decades to not be developed by Retro Studios, this Donkey Kong feels more like a Metroid game
How
because
so?
there are those things that you need to, like when you start out a Metroid game, and maybe sometimes you start out the game with all of your upgrades and then you lose them, but that's sort of like the worst part about playing through the Metroid games is when you start a new game and you have to slowly accumulate all the stuff that makes traversal and killing things fun. Like you need to get
Hmm.
all those upgrades back again. Whereas a game like Mario, you're set from the jump. You could just immediately do that. And I guess like Metroid is just the easiest comparison. You could say that about Zelda. You could say that about any game where you upgrade your character. But I think Metroid is an apt comparison because there's several Metroid games where the first level you have all the upgrades, and then the game finds a story way to like take them away from you. And despite
You think
I
Samus
love
would have
Metroid
figured out a
games,
way to do that by now?
yeah,
Like stop that from happening. Like
I
give the suit like some sort of defense
yeah put a
mechanism.
firewall or something.
Yeah, right. Like,
I love Metro games, but I imagine Metro fans would agree with me that that is the most egregious part of playing each new Metro game. But I mean, what are you gonna do? Like, you
I
can't.
would actually personally disagree, but I mean, maybe it's me just kind of like you might actually agree with me with the way I say this. I really like the lock and key mechanism of Metroid. I think that's kind of
Yeah.
a lot of the fun. It's kind of like getting everything, and kind of the
Mm-hmm.
game becomes sometimes in some ways easier, but also there's like new challenges, new ways of kind of exploring that kind of come up, and I've
Yeah.
always really enjoyed that.
Yeah, like it bugs me, but it's necessary. Cause like, what else are you gonna do? You play a new game and she already has all the upgrades. Like, if somebody's starting with that game, they're not gonna
They
know
did
what's
that with
going on.
Banjo Tooie, to be fair. Like, you start that game with all the stuff you learn in Banjo Kazooie, and there's just more shit to learn.
I do like
But like
that.
honestly, yeah.
Yeah.
But honestly, like that game has its own like most of the stuff you learn in Banjo Tooie is kind of annoying to do. So
Mm-hmm. For our anniversary, I got my wife a DS cart that has several like different DS ROMs on it that can play on any handheld console like that. And I was like, oh, they have all these Pokemon games on there. Like, we should do a Pokemon run together. And I think she said something akin to like, can we just like switch off because I really hate starting Pokemon games. And I think that's a very popular sentiment. I've heard that before. And it's sort of the same thing. Like, people like being in the games, but the starting part is a little slow. Then you need to accumulate all that stuff slowly. But I think that's just the case with a lot of video games, honestly.
I feel like there's something cozy about like the beginning of a Pokemon game, though.
Yeah.
Honestly, I mean, I guess like sometimes there is that like hiccup mode where you're trying to train up a certain Pokemon that's like not good yet, but once it learns like a certain move or evolves, it's like okay, now it's not as tedious. So I guess I get that.
Yeah, I'm looking at these Pokemon Terra leaks. I've just so they've been brought to my desk now. I don't know how much you want to talk about this or how much you've looked into this. I'm just now hearing about this live. This isn't like a new breach, right? This is the person who leaked Game Freak files earlier in the year and just waiting to reveal more stuff. Or no, this seems to be new stuff.
I
There's a
think
lot of
someone just got their
information.
hold on the game.
Well, no, it's the Terra. What I'm looking at right now, like all this new leak stuff. It isn't like just spoilers for ZA. It isn't even spoilers for ZA. It's just like I guess like a timeline of the games that are gonna release in the next couple years.
Oh. Oh, I think I heard a little bit about that. I heard someone's
Yeah.
okay. Shit. What now I'm like not sure if I want to hear more or not.
Right now, I'm just scrolling and I'm like, okay, this. But again, it's all like beta stuff, so it's just like, oh, Gen 10 will be bigger than Gen 9. It's like, all right.
It's
Okay,
like, whoa,
Twitch chat says
really?
it's from the leak last year. He said he wouldn't leak it until ZA release week. Okay, so it is the same person from the Terra leak. Like, nothing has changed. That's why
Dude,
it's
but
like
like
we're getting sources of sources because all these Twitter accounts are just like, I guess, in the server with this person. Because the reason I
uh-huh.
found this out is because I got a notification on my phone that like Game Explain posted a YouTube video. And then I checked it out, and their only source in the description was Central Leaks. And I'm like, okay, so we're just getting sources of sources of sources. It's just the
I
same
don't know
guy
who's
in a
sourcing
Discord
who
server.
anymore. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it is just a timeline of like,
Actually, vaguely, I feel like I remember someone saying that they were gonna wait until ZA release week to like finish showing everything off.
yeah, but like
So
this timeline that says
check that.
2025 ZA, early 26 ZA DLC, and late 26 Gen 10, that's already what I assumed anyway.
Yeah, I mean it's not like super.
Mm-hmm. And then,
How
yeah, the
far
year,
how far does the like timeline go?
it goes to 2028.
Oh, okay.
So, should I read this off?
Yeah, I'm not too bothered by spoilers for that. I mean,
Okay. So anyone that doesn't want to hear, there's more after it leaked as well. Well, I'm not looking at any leaks for ZA other than the textures look better in the demo. Who would have thought? But as far as like the timeline goes, it says 2025 Legend ZA, early 2026 ZA DLC, which we know about. They announced the DLC even before the game is released. Gen 10, which is I guess internally titled Waves and Winds, which I mean it's Gen 10, so it's probably two separate games. And then early 2027 Winds and Waves DLC. Late 2027 is something titled Ringo, which is apparently a Legends Galar game.
fucking really,
Yeah, that's interesting
dude.
though, because I thought like, okay, we got Legends Arceus, So that is what the Sinnoh remake is going to be. So I thought before we got Legends ZA, and I think maybe that was the initial disappointment with Legends ZA, is I thought it was either going to be Johto or Unova, right? And I thought it was going to go in that order. But now that we're just doing Legends wherever, right? ZA. And I'll say this, like, I would always prefer a Legends game to a mainline game anyway. Although I prefer original and, like, new Pokemon to catch. That's why Legends Arceus is the most fun I had with a modern Pokemon game. So, and more of them being Legends games, I'm not upset with, especially if they're jumping around a lot. So I think that a Legends Galar game, we're still like Switch-brained maybe, and this is like the era we became adults. It's like, oh, we're going back to Galar again. But by 2027, I think the Galar nostalgia might be there.
Yeah,
I think it's already there a little bit for me, especially with like the generation after it. But I imagine people have higher priorities. I really hope that the Legends goes back to being maybe not literally feudal, but just set way in the past. Because the idea of Legends ZA being set after X and Y, I don't really care that much about.
Yeah, I would probably be pretty down for Galar if it took place in like Victorian like Galar or whatever.
Twitch chat says, you know what's crazy? The leak revealed ZA was supposed to be Johto, but was changed early in development. Man, I would have been right then. I would have never been wrong in any Smash video. That would have been perfect.
Wow.
And then after that, 2028 is a game, what's it called? Working title? Yeah, working title Seed. Or no, Codename. Codename Seed. A game that takes place in all of Japan, as in generations 1 through 4.
Whoa. Okay.
Yeah. That shit people have been talking about for a while. And as a kid, I thought that concept was really cool. And then you get a little older and you learn more about video games and you're like, okay, that's like the Nintendo hire this man of Pokemon ideas. Like, oh, what if they made a huge open world with like, how do you pace that, I guess, is my main question.
Yeah, that's the thing. I'm thinking to myself, like, I mean, maybe they're doing like, I wouldn't be surprised, all things considered, if they like really just, if that's like a whole new way they do the game, if it's like if it's like an MMORPG kind of thing, like that doesn't seem beyond the pale to me. But it's kind of true. It is kind of a Nintendo hire this man kind of thing.
It seems more like an MMO, maybe. I suppose we'll see. I mean, I like that idea, right? I like the idea of going back to Johto or Hoenn or Sinnoh. And you know what? Fuck it, put Kanto in there. You know what? In a modern game, and a game that will release in 2028. I guess it makes sense to have this slate planned out with how long the Switch 2 will probably have its life cycle. Like, we just got the Switch 2. I'm going to assume it's going to be 7 years. I'd be surprised if it was 5, like the Wii U or I think the GameCube was also 5 years. Basically, their consoles that don't sell well are normally 5 years. And I think the Switch was the longest one with 8 years because it sold the best? Yeah, I think it did outsell the Wii. So I'm just going to be... I'm splitting the atom down the middle. I'm just going to say 7 years because that's average for a console. Which also means that 2027, we might get the new other consoles, you know, your PlayStation, your Xbox. But I think what we figured out last time on the Switch 2 Ultra podcast, Flashback, is that Xbox probably won't be making a new console come 2027.
I wouldn't be surprised if that's just like not a thing they do anymore.
Also, I brought this up at the server, but what I heard is that Xbox like got so much pushback by raising the price of Game Pass that they like went back on it, or they canceled it, or they're keeping the price down, which I'm glad. I'm glad that pushback will do that. And I'm also glad it happened because I was too lazy to cancel my subscription, so I guess I don't have to pay that anymore. As far as other stuff going up. So yeah, I imagine if Pokemon stuff is important, then we will cover it moving forward. Because I imagine, like, today isn't the only day we're going to get information. He will, like, slowly drip out stuff. And by the time, like, a week passes or 2 weeks pass, we will have more streamlined information to cover, depending on how much we want to say about the leaks. But I think next week is mainly focused on ZA. We're talking about this show being like, oh, there'll be this thing to talk about this week, or this thing to talk about this week. There really hasn't been a week where there hasn't been that much to talk about, at least game-wise, maybe like 1 or 2. But now that we're getting towards the end of the year, basically as soon as ZA comes out, as soon as this podcast goes off the air tonight, it's going to be every other week. regardless of how important these Nintendo games are going to be, it's going to be ZA and then I think a 2-week gap. Actually, I'm going to look at my calendar. I'm just going to be sure about this. It's going to be ZA and then a 2-week gap and then Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment and then a week and then Kirby Air Riders and then a week and then Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. So for the most part, after this, it's every other week. And
we're looking at a pretty eventful end of the year.
I had no issue with playing Bonanza nonstop and even a little bit of Kirby DLC for the Forgotten Land. But comparing the launch of the Switch 2 in the summer, if not like the late spring of 2025, to now, where we're getting these 4 games basically every other week, that it seems a lot more back-weighted. And I think, I don't know. I want to say like, oh, Nintendo would have benefited if they pan these games out a little bit more instead of, waiting 2 months after Bonanza and waiting a month after Mario Kart. And now everything's coming out at the end. Obviously, I don't want them to rush games unless they're finished, and we still have a full another Kirby Air Riders Direct at some point. Oh, you know what? We'll get into this. Speaking of which, I really don't have anything to say to this, but people in the BH Ultra Patreon Discord server requested we bring this up on the Switch to Ultra podcast, that Masahiro Sakurai had a dinner with a bunch of Japanese game developers and also Toby Fox.
Dude, Toby won. Dude, he's like the one guy who like always fantasized about like being involved in Nintendo despite being
Japanese.
Like a white guy in America.
Yeah.
But he actually became friends with like Masahiro Sakurai. You know what I mean? Because like as a kid, I would like fantasize about making a game and like it being featured in Smash Bros. Or me being like the cool new guy in Nintendo, and that actually happened to Toby Fox. So good for Toby Fox.
That's why like I sort of don't understand. We talked about a bogus 4chan leak so long ago, but it's still on our Smash character guide board here. There was like a 4chan leak that said or postulated the Fun Gang, the main trio from Deltarune, would be a playable fighter in Smash Bros. And the most pushback I heard from that was not like, oh, that's not possible, that's not going to happen. I'm going to do that again because my character wasn't moving. The most pushback I heard from that was not, oh, that's impossible, that's never going to happen. From Sakurai's perspective, right? From the Smash side of things. The most pushback I heard on that was like, oh, Toby Fox won't let them release merch of those characters because they're supposed to be real people, so he wouldn't have these characters playable in Smash Bros. Are you fucking kidding me? He was on the Earthbound forums in the 2000s. He's the fucking Nintendo white boy. Of course he would love his characters to be in Smash Bros.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm projecting onto him, but there's no way he would refuse that at all.
I forget the like Deltarune lore, but there's like a reason he doesn't like release certain characters as merch, right? I think it's like a lore reason or something.
Like the Lightners, the people who live in the hometown, whereas you can release merch of the Darkners, the people that only exist within the Dark Worlds. And I've heard that as a reason to be like, Chris and Susie wouldn't be playable in Smash Bros. And I think that, like, that really doesn't take into account how much Toby probably... Like, he's the main voice in the fucking Homestuck cartoon. Clearly, he still has a soft spot for stuff that he liked when he was younger.
I mean, potentially, what if I'm gonna believe this model I've created in my own head of his, like, proclivities and behavior, I would predict that he would want an Undertale Deltarune character, but maybe not. Like a Lightner or something.
Yeah.
Like potentially, I mean, this is me just being kind of an old head. I've always liked Frisk, but
yeah,
that's
fair.
Me personally. Like, I mean, but I think nowadays, I think Deltarune might be bigger than Undertale. I mean, people are kind of talking about, like, oh, yeah, Undertale is going to become, like, the clunky older brother to Deltarune in the mind.
It's going to be
like,
Mother
Gen
1.
Or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but,
you know what I mean? So it's like...
I mean, I'm biased because I started with Deltarune. So I'm sure that Undertale is still bigger, but I would prefer Deltarune.
No, I think Deltarune, like, maybe I'm wrong. I feel like Deltarune might be bigger now than Undertale was when it was, like, at its peak.
I don't know. Undertale was really big.
Yeah, I might be wrong, but yeah, no, I guess like, I don't know. These are big games, you know. I think sometimes like there's been like a historical culture of thinking like, oh yeah, like these indie games are too kind of niche for what's the word, to be like included in Smash Bros. But first of all, post Steve, post Toby Fox making Pokemon tracks or whatever, Like I don't think that's really that relevant, especially because like if we're being honest, like I mean I know Fatal Fury is more popular in other parts of the world. Like I'd say that like characters like Frisk or Sans are generally more recognizable than like Terry from Fatal Fury. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like I think like that's just kind of an old way of thinking that doesn't seem to be the case, especially because like Toby Fox's buddy, he's like he's
Well,
having dinner with Masahiro Sakurai.
just off the
It's so
metric of
funny.
being popular in America and Japan, like that probably puts the Deltarune characters above like Doom Guy or like Master Chief that aren't popular in
Yeah.
Japan at all. Sonic
Oh,
only
are they
became
really not?
popular in Japan recently.
That's always been crazy to me. The fact that
Hmm.
Sonic is like not that big in Japan.
Was designed exactly to be the American mind can comprehend the coolest thing. A bunch of Japanese developers gather around and are like, okay, how do we need to make the character that will appeal to Americans, and they made Sonic, and that is
Mm.
the entire thing distilled. Okay, but even if we want to believe that Toby will have some tie-ups when it comes to that, we have seen that happen within Smash Bros. Like when Sora was added to the game, Kirby, when he inhales Sora, has a fake Keyblade made out of stars because the director said that, like, oh yeah, Kirby can't wield the Keyblade because only Keyblade wielders can wield the Keyblade. If Toby wants to pull some shit like that, he could still have the characters in the game. It could just be like, I don't know, like a robot clone, something like that.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I feel like doing something external, like changing the identity of the character in that way might be a little much. I think the reason why I'm like I kind of agree with the I don't want to say I agree. I kind of understand your skepticism of it,
Mm-hmm.
but I kind of see why he might have hangups about them. Is that I don't know. You kind of see the fact that he has like one of the biggest indie game kind of like most popular indie games ever, and like despite that he like refuses to create merch for certain characters. Like that is very headstrong of him, and not like that's a good or a bad thing. It's just that is not I think most people wouldn't have a specific kind of artistic point they're trying to make about the characters that like he wouldn't want to make merch of them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's why I feel like he might want to work something out so it's not Chris being the character. Like, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. That's basically why I think he would rather do someone else, but you know, I
I
don't know.
do
I
think
mean,
there's a slight.
Smash Bros like discourse is like so different nowadays. I feel like I'm out of practice.
Yeah. Well, also like this is all just nebulous. There's no current Smash game. Like this is just
Yeah.
hypothetical. But I do think it's a little different when it comes to favoritism and biases. Whereas like not saying that it would be easy to turn up merch, but if you don't care that much about merchandise, you'd be like, "No, we don't need to do it." Whereas I like Toby Fox used to play Smash Bros. I wouldn't say competitively, but like attended tournaments. Like he very clearly really loves Smash Bros.
Yeah.
So much so that it's even referenced within Deltarune, I believe.
Super Smashing Fighters or something like that.
Yeah, I'm projecting. Maybe I'm putting myself into his shoes. But if I was him, I would want my character in Smash Bros, which I think most people do. I think you'd be hard pressed to find a developer who wouldn't want their character in Smash Bros. That's why whenever you're covering speculation and somebody's like, "Oh man, this developer said they'd love to see their characters in Smash Bros." Does that mean we're gonna see it? It's like what developer would say like, "Nah, I don't
It
want
probably
that."
means you're not gonna see it if we're being honest. Because if
Yeah,
it was gonna happen, there'd be an NDA, and they'd avoid answering that question. You know?
yeah, they would. Even then, it would just like I think that's just a non-factor to say like, oh, they really want their character in. Like, of course, there's
Dude,
no
I'd really like my
downside.
character in Smash Bros.
Yeah, put that in there. On top of it, we're just gonna go over these tertiary tweets before we get back to our point. Pokemon also tweeted this, which is an image, a spooky image. Can I move that to the middle? Spooky image of a Clefairy plush. And I thought going into this when people were talking about leaks, it's just like, oh, it's the same leaks we've been talking about. But Mega Clefable is one that was on the list, and I think you made a mock-up
Yeah,
for it as well.
I did.
That has led us through this year. That was my point when we were talking about the game's releases, is that I don't think it was a poor launch, and I have no issue with playing Donkey Kong Bonanza nonstop. But I do think it's interesting that the console launched in June with Mario Kart, and I guess Welcome Tour, if you want to count that. And then Bonanza was a month after. And then kind of nothing other than Switch 2 editions. But again, they consider the Switch 2 editions to be bigger deals, or maybe they are just filler. We had sort of, I don't want to say a drought because we're always playing games and always have stuff to talk about. It's just sort of the idea that people are bleeding through games so quickly, they're like, oh, I immediately need the next one. It doesn't really take into account that games are expensive. My point being, there was a gap between Bonanza and ZA where no new games were really coming out. And I think people were feeling that the most when people were saying, like, oh man, the Switch 2 fell off, like, this is a failed console. And come to think of it, I really don't think they care that much about the actual launch day of the console. I think the most important thing to Nintendo, and I know we've been saying this for weeks, and even for a while, we're like, oh, who cares about the holiday game? But looking back, like, no, the holiday is probably their most lucrative time. I think they were releasing it in the summer just to get it on shelves. And then they're going to release all of the games that are important October onward, the holiday games. Because I think I said this earlier, too, that, like, I don't think Mario, when, like, the summer has passed, so people were saying, I say that a lot, you know, nebulous people in my head. Strawmen were saying, strawmen were saying that everyone stopped playing the game because everyone who wanted to play the game has already bought it and stopped playing. However, I think that Mario Kart is still a console seller. They'll just do, like, I mean, they have a bundle. That'll just sell out around the holidays instead. I think the summer launch doesn't really matter that much. It makes it even kind of strange that they launched it in the summer. I'm glad they did, but I don't think the launch matters as much as the holiday, which makes it strange that it makes sense. What I'm saying is we are now out of the dry spell, and we will have constant games to discuss.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I would argue that, I mean, this is just like kind of a gut feeling. I wouldn't be surprised if releasing games a couple months before the winter, or releasing the console a couple months before is easier, because that's not as busy of a time for, you know, Nintendo in general. So kind of releasing the console during, I guess, not as lucrative of a time, so they can kind of have it on shelves and ready for the, like, what's the word? The kind of inevitable holiday rush. That there's probably a lot of benefits in that.
I don't think it would have benefited them to launch it during the holiday, because then it just would have been...
Yeah, it would probably be difficult to kind of deal with all the kind of like everything going on, like just like throwing. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I assume there's a lot of promotion, a lot of money that needs to be spent, a lot of things that need to change hands for a console release, and doing that during the holidays as well. It's probably difficult, especially, like, I don't know. It probably is better to just kind of release it a little earlier on in the year, and then have like a pretty good, healthy, growing library of games to buy for the holiday. Because I imagine, like, maybe someone who buys, you know, the Switch 2 for Christmas or whatever, they'll probably buy that. They'll probably buy the new Pokemon, the new Mario, the new Donkey Kong, maybe Mario Kart, and a handful of other games. I feel like that feels more like that feels pretty appropriate, I think, you know.
It might be wishful thinking, but I do believe in the coming months that we're going to see the release of bundles. Like, more. I know there's already a ZA bundle, but there's going to be more bundles. Or maybe one of those deals where it's like, oh, you get this game if you buy this game, something like that. Mm-hmm. That if they launch the console around the holiday season, then there would be a rush of people who get the console at launch and families who want to buy it for Christmas buying at the same time. So I think launching in the summer makes more sense in retrospect, that all the people that wanted to get a console at launch would buy it at launch. It goes away for a little bit. They restock shelves. And then come the holiday, people who want to buy it for the holiday season can get it for the holiday season.
Makes sense, yeah.
Mm-hmm. But that is... I guess that wasn't really a formative review of Donkey Kong Bonanza, but there's not much I could say about it other than it's good. I like it. It's fun.
Yeah, I love it. It's such a, we don't get stuff like that normally. It's an all new kind of Donkey Kong game, and I think that's one of the things that really is so exciting to me. You know, it's just, in many ways, I said it already. It's unprecedented, and it's just, I don't know. I'm really excited about it because, I don't know, in this day and age, we don't really see Nintendo franchises really kind of reinvent themselves. So seeing Donkey Kong come back after, frankly, a long time in this kind of form is just, I don't know, it's really novel, it's really fun, and I'm excited to see what happens next. If any like other game series are kind of going to
I
get
was gonna
like a new
ask you,
kind
yeah,
of.
outside of like spin-off material like Mario Kart or Mario Tennis, do you think we're gonna see more of this Donkey Kong and maybe even this Pauline?
Probably not for a few years. I think these. Yeah, I know you said outside of. I assume yeah, they're gonna become spin-off mainstays. I mean, this new
Mm-hmm.
Donkey Kong design is probably gonna be the norm from this point forward. Uh, it might be a while before we get another kind of Donkey Kong Bonanza-esque game, if any at
Yeah.
all.
I was gonna say, like, is
I
this
mean,
gonna be a series like an every 3 year series, or is it gonna be like Mario, 3D Mario, where it's like, okay, we'll wait for
nah,
the next console?
I doubt it. I mean, if they do another game like this, it's gonna be a next console game, I bet.
Oh. I hope we see something from this world a little bit more.
Hmm. Especially because frankly, the DLC looks like shit.
Yeah. And also just had bad PR in general.
Yeah, no, it was not very well done.
Mm-hmm. But at least I lined it up perfectly, so now I can immediately jump into ZA as the podcast is. If there was any game that, out of the entire lineup of Nintendo games this year, if there was any one that I could pick to have the biggest gap in time, it would be Bonanza, because then I could just play Bonanza nonstop, which I'm totally fine with. No smoke to
Yeah,
Mario
no,
Kart. I do want to go back to Mario Kart. What I was getting at earlier is that I will only have the 5 streams to like play ZA before it might not even like after the first week people are going to start posting stuff, so I need to do my best to like avoid it. But I do want to go back to my Thursday stream just being the day where I load up the Switch 2 and just play whatever. I like the idea of jumping around between multiple games, right? Like doing some collectibles in Mario Kart World, getting some post-game stuff in Donkey Kong, maybe doing a level in Kirby and the Forgotten Land Switch 2 edition, maybe collecting a little bit more in the Tears of the Kingdom Switch 2 edition. Stuff like that. But whenever there's a
yeah,
big game that releases that takes up all my time, granted, I mean, I imagine Kirby Air Riders will have some kind of campaign. I guess it depends. Like, this is Masahiro Sakurai, so either it's going to be a fantastic campaign that
or
warrants the
it's
game in
gonna
and of
suck.
itself, or it'll just be something secondary that people will be like, yeah, that was fun enough. That I think Air Riders will be another game that you play amongst other games, just on the side, as opposed to being like a 13-part stream series like Bonanza was.
Mm-hmm.
And even Hyrule Warriors, I don't care that much about it. I'll probably just play it for that stream.
Yeah, yeah. No, one thing I'm not exactly excited for is having to spend because I've kind of enjoyed not spending $70 several times for a bunch of games these
Mm-hmm.
past few months. That's gonna start up again, but I'll live.
Mm-hmm.
I'll live.
I a little peek behind the curtain. It actually doesn't matter that much, but the editors we normally had that would put together the Switch to Ultra like YouTube episodes have been very busy and backed up as of late. And they're very like apologetic, like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, this is late. I'm sorry, like we're several streams behind." But the way I view it, like I pay each commission when the edit is done. So for me, I haven't had to pay anyone anything for like a month. So I'm like, you know what? I'm fine. I'm cool.
It's like, all right, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we wouldn't incentivize people to watch the
It's not a
streams
total
anyway.
loss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't. I think what I went into, like, going into the year, I think the Turbo channel, the second channel in general, is sort of just a failed experiment. That doesn't mean, like, I'm gonna abandon it or switch gears or stop doing this, but I think by now I would have assumed that I could have monetized the second channel, and the goalpost has been
Mm.
moved a little bit. So it hasn't turned a profit the amount that I've put into like the stream edits
Uh,
or the edits of the podcast. Whereas right now we could slowly accumulate even more edits. But I think that the edits we did of being like, oh, editor, put this in or cut this in or whatever, isn't as integral to the show because it's a longer podcast. Like, if we cut them down to like 30-minute edits or whatever, like, oh, this is all the important stuff, then sure. But if we could display everything on screen, it actually doesn't make that big of a difference. Like, if I could show the Smash screen on screen, we could just lean into this being more a live show. Like, the priorities are the live show aspects. So maybe there won't be any
yeah.
more edits. I don't know. We'll see moving forward. But right now,
One thing that might be a cool idea is maybe hiring your editors to cut them down into shorts and just kind of like roll the dice on that. I think that'd probably be a little bit more consistently rewarding.
that's true.
If you want to like true slopify the being
Yeah.
filter told
Well, like I'm getting like more. I don't know if selfish is the word, but the idea is right that I've been making all these videos about the Smash Ultimate hype cycle because there were people I would watch back in the day that every week there'd be like, this is all the stuff happening in leaks right now. And they would be like talking to a camera or whatever. And I was like, oh, I really want to do that when a new Smash comes out, if a new Smash comes out, which again, it just might not. So I was like, oh, I'll do this podcast for it. But even on top of that, I still kind of want to do that. So I might just also, I might do the podcast and then also like do the leaks. Or I don't know, maybe we'll have a specific segment that I'm like, this is a 20-minute segment where we talk about this thing in the episode, and then we'll cut that down to a different thing. We'll see. This is all assuming that there's going to be a new one. Again, we have our little speculation chart here. And we haven't really... I mean, we talked about it today. That's got to count for something. We updated it with Raven... Or no, we updated it with Silux, Waluigi, and Bandana Waddle Dee. Now that Bandana Waddle Dee is a proper render. But we have... And also, like, the podcasts are getting shorter and shorter because they're becoming more consolidated, which is good. And I think the issue of, like, keeping them longer was so that, like, the edit was worth the amount I was commissioning. Because if you do, like, an hour and a half stream...
Was what?
So that way, like, if we stream for a long time and then the edit is, like, an hour, it's like, okay, then this person's, like, getting the amount it's worth. But now that, like, and I think it's sort of, if we're being honest about it, it's sort of, like, kneecapped the show a little bit that we were constantly, like, trying to, like, spin the wheels and make it go a little longer. That I think... instead of it being the live show and the edits, I think prioritizing the live show in the updates and consolidating the information as densely as we can is a better alternative, because then it's just like an hour. And we're an hour into it now, and I think now we can talk about our main headline, the main headline, before I knew that there were major Pokemon leaks. But we have said before in multiple episodes that a lot of Nintendo's announcements this year have been very strange. They've been out there.
Yes,
very
much so.
They just randomly announced Splatoon Raiders, and then we didn't hear anything about it. And I think the key to understanding that is the Pokemon Today app. However, October 7th, this video was released by Nintendo titled Close to You. And it is a video of presumably a mother and a child. The 7th is a Tuesday. So it was the day after the previous podcast this went up. And I immediately started bookmarking stuff. I'm like, okay, this is going to be something. So I imagine we don't need to explain it as much. It'll be happening behind us as I do my turnaround. That anyone who... People have seen this video. People have heard about it. If you haven't, this is the video, right? The stuff keeps moving, and then the baby's like, whoa, stuff's moving on its own. That's crazy. There was a lot of discourse before the big reveal happened, or rather discussion. What did you think of this initially? What was your initial theory?
I mean, honestly, I saw people saying Pikmin before I actually watched it.
Yeah.
But like once I watched it, I'm like, oh, Pikmin. Like I probably would have realized it was Pikmin, if if I had watched it completely blind. If I'm being, maybe that's me tooting my horn. Maybe I'm just like being smug. But you really hear it in like the piano. They kind of keep playing the theme over and over again. I mean, it's pretty recognizable, or maybe it isn't. I don't know. So because of that, like I realized, I assume this is just like a kind of a weird way of doing it, but a kind of new... I think it's just a game teaser. I think they're probably just gonna make a new Pikmin or something.
So you do think it is a game teaser?
Maybe. I mean, I'm thinking like, what else would it be? I mean, I know they have like an animation studio now, right, but I don't know. Like, would it be a Pikmin movie? Like, for me, I'm just kind of thinking Occam's Razor. Like to me, it seems a little bit more like most likely that it's just a trailer.
First anthem.
But I mean, to be fair, like this is still kind of, I don't know. It's not the usual MO, so I could be wrong.
Because this doesn't seem like, not that that's incorrect, because it could still be correct, but the trailer in and of itself, it doesn't seem like it's their normal game trailer. This does seem like a Nintendo Pictures joint, which is the company they made in 2022 to make more animated features, and also probably live action features, because we know about the Zelda movie. And after this came out, because as soon as this came out, I knew that we were going to talk about it. So I thought it was going to be a Kirby Air Riders Direct situation where we weren't going to get anything more. So I was like, okay, I'll wait to analyze this like the day before the podcast. I'll start writing notes. So I didn't actually watch it. But the two main things I heard. Also, Twitch chat says it's confirmed Nintendo Pictures. So this is an animated short created by Nintendo Pictures. I had the two main theories I heard were obviously, oh, this is Pikmin. This is a trailer involving Pikmin. The other one I heard, is this like one of those theories? Yeah, I think it is. Let me mute that. This is by Short Kickstar on Twitter.com. This isn't the most popular one or even the most like comprehensive one, but this is just a good little like pinpoint to what people were saying, believing that the trailer and the short looked too good, right? They had the half idea that it has to be Nintendo Pictures, but contextualize that being like, oh, we have a Mario Galaxy movie coming out, so the Nintendo Pictures animation has to be related to that, so it's probably Baby Rosalina, right? That's the other theory I heard. I don't think this is Baby Rosalina. However, I would like to combine those two theories. That's just me maybe riding the fence, maybe just doing the middle ground. This isn't my theory, but it's something I've heard before, that it is, I mean, obvious. Okay, well, there's no theory about it being Pikmin. It just is Pikmin. There was an updated version of the trailer that was released exclusively on the Nintendo Today app, even though we're watching it illegally on YouTube.com. Again, another example.
Gaming.
Oh, shout out Prosavia. Yeah,
I actually don't know.
It's one of those things. Yeah, I've always said Prosifa, but no, you're right.
I love it when I like refuse to actually like read someone's username in full for years that I never actually learn how to properly spell and pronounce it.
Yeah, there was a guy who did Pokemon walkthroughs and just like Pokemon news roundups that I watched as a kid, and maybe this is also just white kid not understanding Spanish names, but his YouTube name,
Giancarlo Paramango.
It was Giancarlo Paramango 11. Yes, the very same. And as a kid, I'm just like Gian. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I was I was lost, dude.
Mm-hmm. That, and even like blame it on Jorge. Just shit I didn't understand. That.
Oh
okay.
Yeah, even nowadays I read it as blame it on George. I think it's because there are still people with the name spelled like that do just.
Well, he said it as George once, and I'm like, it just. Have I been wrong in Jorge? But then he says it as Jorge in new videos, so I don't know if he was like trying to.
I do know people that will often like just pronounce their names in the more like Anglo pronunciation.
Yeah.
Just because it's easier that way. Like it's like instead of that's actually pronounced this to every single person I ever meet ever. Like I kind of get it, but.
But this is another example of something important and integral being on the Nintendo Today app. Even more funny that this like Pikmin version still hasn't been released officially by Nintendo on their YouTube channel. This Close to You trailer is on the Nintendo of America YouTube account, which is why it looks so much better. Other than the, what's it called? The compression of this video that's clearly from an iPhone. And it does feel like they're trying to drive people to the Nintendo Today app. Because that was an announcement in the Direct that sort of like, oh, whatever, they have an app. But more and more, it seems like they really want people to use that as the primary news source. But unfortunately, it just never is going to be that, right? People are always going to prefer Directs. Yeah, I prefer Directs. I mean,
like... it's like the Jeremy Rayner app, Like,
yeah.
It's like, I'm not... I'd rather just see it on YouTube or Twitter. Or
right,
whatever.
It will appear on Twitter if it's important. But I like the Count Cannoli theory. That's like, oh my god, you can only see the Pikmin on the Nintendo Today app because of Pikmin Bloom's throwaway line about only being able to see them through your smartphone. That's Nintendo's main phone app now. I don't believe this, I just think it's cute. Because this implies that it's always on the iPhone apps, which isn't true, because you could still see them anywhere else on the console. But what I was getting at when it comes to the theory is that half of the people were saying, this is Pikmin. This is for a new Pikmin project, likely a new Pikmin game. The other half saying, this looks too good to be a video game trailer. This has to be tied to the Mario movie. This is probably a flashback. This is Baby Rosalina from the Mario movie. Whereas not that I think
we're thinking the same thing.
I don't think it's impossible that there could be a new Pikmin game. However, I think this is also just a short created by Nintendo Pictures that, I don't know, might air before the Mario movie in theaters. Like if they want to be Pixar.
Yeah.
I think that might disappoint some people,
Uh,
but I don't think that's the likeliest outcome. But I do think that's
that
possible.
if that was the reason, I wouldn't find that too strange. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I would be I'm glad if that's the case that they're showing Pikmin in theaters at all because Nintendo Pictures and I think they said like in the development or when they talked about the development specs of Donkey Kong Bonanza that a big part of designing Donkey Kong in that way was because of the Mario movie. That now that Nintendo doesn't just make games, they're a theme park, they're an animation studio, they're a film studio, whatever. They want to beef up their library a little more cuz it can't just be Mario and Zelda the whole time.
yeah,
We got a Mario movie, we're getting a Zelda movie, we're getting a second Mario movie. There are other tertiary Nintendo characters and franchises that are iconic to them and Nintendo fans and also present in their theme park. However, I don't think they're big enough draws to like get people in the theaters. So if Pikmin are going to be like their I wouldn't say minions, but like their if every animated Nintendo movie moving forward started with a Pikmin short, I think that's a good fit for them. I don't think we would get a full like 90-minute animated Pikmin movie. I think that's incredibly
yeah.
unlikely. So I
If
think
they did, it would probably have to be like pretty damn low budget to the point where I think like it's gonna be pretty noticeable in a way that people don't like. You know what I mean?
mhm.
And like if that's the case,
It
then
just
and
also
you really
like
want to
isn't
do
as
it.
big of a draw, which is fine. It just like
Exactly.
isn't.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, because I was like thinking like, oh, maybe it's a Pikmin movie, but I mean, I think they probably could whip Pikmin into shape, for lack of
Mhm.
a better term, to kind of make it like something they can turn into a like full feature films. But in its current state, no. I mean, I could honestly see like a Pikmin movie for kids being really popular and doing really well, but they'd probably have to develop a lot more familiarity than they currently have,
Yeah, they'd basically have to
and
make them the
that's a long
rabbits,
process.
which I don't think
Yeah,
people want to see. That there are
especially since like it's known worldwide. You know?
mm-hmm. I think it suits an animated short before an animated movie. And I hope
Yeah,
we see
yeah.
more of that. Like, I don't mind getting more Mario movies like every other year. But I do hope that there is more Nintendo animation. I mean, just off the bat of the Zelda movie being live action announced, like that already sort of rubbed me the wrong way. That I would rather them just only make animated pictures because I think they would probably excel in that more. But
Hmm.
I there are characters we associate as Nintendo characters because we play them exclusively on Nintendo consoles or something like Smash Bros. But they don't own all of like their as far as the company creation, right? They didn't create Kirby, they didn't create Pokemon. I think they own the rights to it, but they didn't create those. So I think the big five is a shifting group depending on who you ask. But I feel like for Nintendo internally, it is like Mario, Zelda, Pikmin, Splatoon, Animal Crossing. And I think an Animal Crossing movie is probably more likely than a
There already is
Splatoon or
one
Pikmin one.
actually.
Another Animal Crossing movie. I mean, if we're going off that metric, then there is a Pikmin movie, I guess.
Oh,
But
really? I didn't know that.
I think there's like a what's it called? Not an AMV. What do they call them?
OVA.
OVA. Yeah, an OVA. Yes, 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 yes.
Yeah.
Um, that's I think we can get more Mario, probably more Zelda. I mean, maybe a Splatoon movie. Splatoon's pretty popular, and even like Animal Crossing is also very popular. But I think those are the five they consider the main ones. Even though your '80s Nintendo head would feature something more like Metroid, which isn't doesn't
Yeah.
sell as well and isn't as integral to Nintendo as much as we would like. But
I would love it to be that.
I don't want to say firmly. I'll say that this being a short doesn't mean there isn't a Pikmin game in development, or we won't get a Pikmin game on the Switch 2. We won't get a new Pikmin game soon. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying if we do get a Pikmin game, it'll be unrelated to this short. I think this short really is just meant to play in theaters before the Super Mario Galaxy movie. However,
Yeah.
I think that Nintendo is, again, not understanding the internet in its current age. And I think Nintendo's plan was to release this trailer where there's all these blocks moving around. and everyone sees the trailer on Twitter and YouTube, and then only the Nintendo Today users see this version of it on the Nintendo Today app, and then they release the full like, I don't want to say 4K, whatever, the original animation reel, right? So it doesn't look as compressed in theaters, and that'll be most people's first look at that short. However, obviously people are going to re-upload it to YouTube and Twitter. Of course they're going to do that, which maybe I'm not giving them enough credit, but I imagine they didn't account for. But I think most realistically this is going to be a short aired before the Mario Galaxy movie, which comes out now in like 6 months, I believe.
Yeah, you have me pretty convinced, I'm not going to lie.
Mm-hmm. And again, I'm not saying that that means there's not going to be a new Pikmin game. I just don't think that's what the short is. I don't think that's what this animation is in reference to. Because there's even more stuff on the back burner. Well, for next year, we still, as far as like dates go, right? And when I say dates, I mean like an actual date, like day of the week. I know I've said before that like, oh, this game doesn't have a release date. And then someone will respond and be like, no, it does. It's winter. It's like, well, that's not what I mean.
Like, yeah, like
we still don't have a day for Tomodachi Life or Rhythm Heaven. We have a day. I don't think we have a day for Yoshi. I think we do have a day for Mario Tennis. And also there's a Mario Wonder Switch 2 edition. I'm already forgetting all the stuff in the September Direct.
Yeah.
That, as far as that goes, as far as the next year goes, we have that Mario Tennis game after all of these major releases at the end of the year. That I think there's still a lot we have to see. But I think that that's really the only thing in February. I know other stuff has been pegged as spring 2026. But I think everything we need to know about, we know about right now. And I'm sticking by my regular pattern, even if the pattern has been shaken a little bit. I think it's direct in February, June, September. Which is a pretty safe bet because we got a direct in June and September. Wait, no, we didn't. We got a direct. Did we get a June direct? I don't think so. No, we got a direct in September and like March, which is, I guess, a carryover from February. But next year, I still think it's safe to say February, June, September. And that's why there was a large portion of the September Direct. Like, they're like, oh, this is a, what do they say? It was a 40-minute Direct, right? Or an hour-long Direct?
It was an hour-long Direct.
Yeah, an hour-long Direct. People were really getting their hopes up. But it was just a normal 40-minute Direct, but with 20 minutes dedicated to talking about the Mario movie. That was likely going to be its own Direct before they're just like, oh, let's just put them together.
Yeah.
I do legitimately think I need to rewatch that September Direct. Because I'm forgetting now what it was. But it's Pikmin. This is what has happened. I think this short, I'm assuming that this was uploaded as soon as the short went up on the Nintendo Today app, October 9th. This tweet is from October 8th. So there was a day where we didn't know if there were Pikmin in this trailer, and people were insisting that it was supposed to be Rosalina and not Pikmin. And I think it's obviously Pikmin. Maybe that's just hindsight. But I can understand why they would think it could be something greater or tied to the Mario movie, because this animation is very good. This is the Nintendo Pictures animation. But that's really
I mean, there's not that many, I think, reasons Nintendo would make an animated short. I mean, I guess, it's a relatively new company, so they might be kind of wanting to, test things out. I can believe that, but like, I don't know why they would make a Pikmin short for no reason. You know what I mean? I assume it's meant to tie in with something. And you're probably right about it being, maybe like a Mario movie thing, like just tying in with that.
Mm-hmm. My point about the releases of the games is I do think it's possible that, because we're sort of already, or maybe I'm speaking for myself here, that 2025 seemed a little lackluster, that we're already sort of like closing the door on it, but there are 4 major Nintendo games that are coming out the end of the year. So maybe it'll turn. I think, and this is probably incorrect, that the gap between Donkey Kong Bonanza and Legend ZA is probably the longest gap between major Nintendo releases for the next like 5 years, I think.
No, I doubt it. I doubt it.
Yeah, I think the launch year just had the least amount of things. Of course, this is not taking into account if a pandemic just happens again, because, nobody saw that coming in 2020. That was when there were the least amount of releases. But I do think moving forward, it's going to be a little bit more steady. I wish I could say that, like, oh, no, 2026, that's when they're really leaning into the Switch 2. But we know there's multiple Switch 1 games coming out. So I guess I have to say that 2027 might be the first year there's not a Switch 1 release. But
Reminds
we
me
can,
of that.
at the end of the year, we can make our predictions for 2026. Maybe we'll do another bingo card. I actually don't know how it's going to work at the end of the year, because I normally on stream take a break near like the middle of December to like late January. And I imagine you will too. So I guess we'll just have a
Okay.
hiatus on the show.
All right, if you want to do that, that's fine.
Yeah, because the alternative is what are the upcoming Mondays? The alternative is like doing the show on December 22nd or December 29th, so on and so forth. And maybe I will come back for some of it. It depends on like where I am. I just normally go back to like where my family is and don't have all of my hardware. But we shall
Yeah.
see. We'll figure out whatever the last Switch 2 Ultra episode of the year will be, and then we will tally together what we think 2026 is going to be. But again, it's still only October, so there's still a number of weeks, months left in the year, and also multiple game releases. Twitch chat says they've been taking down re-uploads, so we'll see if the pod VOD stays up. Whatever, we're covering it. Our faces are in front of it. If it gets taken down, then we know that we're reporting on the real news. We're true journalists here. We didn't get flight out to Paris or Mexico, but we're still, maybe because we talk about all these leaks, but I guess we can cut away from that, because those are all the major pieces of news or context or just discourse in general. And I knew immediately following that pod, like when that first video went up, like, oh, we're going to talk about this for sure. Like this is going to be the main thing. Granted, more stuff has happened since then. This happens every week where I'm like, oh man, I got to start the podcast. I genuinely don't know if we're going to be able to talk about something for this long. And then every week we do, there's always something to talk about. Whether it be Peacemaker ending, or me completing Donkey Kong Bonanza, or being 3 days ahead of Pokemon Legends ZA, or additional releases, or playing Chibi Robo, the retro game, or talking about movies. By the way, I want to say, not to name drop other streamers, but I got a Northern Lion clip today, like mere hours before the stream. I was scrolling through, and I think I've said this on my normal streams, that everyone has their streamer that just says their opinion louder and more eloquently, and that's why they watch them. Whether it be a political streamer or otherwise, it's like, yeah, this guy's saying what we're all thinking. And he had the exact same point, and he obviously said it more hyperbolically and angrily, that, oh, people who watch movies always complain about the marketing, but then they have ad block on and close their eyes when they go outside. And I felt so vindicated, because I said that on this show before. But I haven't seen any new releases in theaters. I think I did talk about the re-releases I saw last week. So hopefully that'll change. I think I'm about 3 or 4 movies behind weekly if I want to get to 52 by the end of the year by watching a movie a week. So maybe some of these weeks I'll double up. Maybe within the weekdays I'll see more. But as far as reviewing anything goes, I think that is truly everything that happened this week. Unless there's anything specific you'd like to cover before we wrap things up today.
Are you liking Smiling Friends Season 3?
I like it. I was
Cool.
I'm maybe not worried, but when I watched the first episode live, and then it was immediately followed up by the Gwimbly episode, which was the first episode of Season 2. Watching those back to back, I couldn't help but compare them. I'm like, I don't know if this Silly Samuel episode is as funny or iconic as the Gwimbly episode. But I really liked the second episode. I liked the series, and I think maybe like reviewing it as reviewing anything else and being like, let's hold this up to a candle and see if these are, because I think not the enjoyment, because I'm always going to enjoy Smiling Friends, but the cultural enjoyment and the conversation about Smiling Friends is whether or not it is still viral. And the fact that I can load up TikTok and still see audios of the newest episodes, I'm like, okay, it's here to stay. Like, it's still going to keep going.
Yeah.
There's a lot of
I agree.
interesting stuff happening within animation. It seems that people sour on things really quickly. That Glitch Studios, which is an indie animation company, has been, I don't want to say buying up because that sounds more malicious, but they've been funding a lot of online independent projects. And because of that, I've seen a little twinkle and I could see it right over the horizon. I know people are going to have terrible takes of people saying, like, oh man, this indie company is becoming a monopoly on all indie animation. It's like, well, they're giving them money. I don't know if that applies here.
Yeah.
But that is
No, I mean, it is interesting because no, I've seen like more people that are like not excited about Smiling Friends recently. More people that kind of just don't like it, which is kind of interesting to me. That's all.
that is interesting. Is it anything about the episodes or just like, I don't really?
I think people are just like not as excited about it existing, so now people are just kind of like, oh, never mind. This show actually sucks or whatever.
Right, which happens to everything.
Yeah,
Where
no,
if it's been enough time, it's like, actually, can we admit this thing was never good? So on and so forth.
yeah, and then like 6 years later, everyone's like, can we admit that this was an underrated masterpiece?
Dude, I can't wait for the videos in like I was about to say 6, 7 years. I didn't mean it. In a handful of years of animation YouTubers saying like, oh, why, like talking about Royal Crackers like they do Xavier Renegade Angel or Moral Oral. Talking about Royal Crackers like they did with Xavier Renegade Angel or Moral Oral, saying like, oh, why did nobody watch the show at the time? Like, this is such an unsung gem. Meanwhile, I'm on the front line saying, you guys got to watch the cartoon now. I've seen so many videos on my recommended recently talking about OKKO, and that's cool and all, but like, where were you when the show was coming out?
Guys, a good way to think about it is that in 6, 7 years, when everyone's saying that about Royal Crackers, you get to be the one who says, oh yeah, I watched that when it came out.
Yeah.
You get to be the one that's smug in the comments section.
I
So
was there. Yeah, I mean, Primo's canceled, Stugo's canceled. I love cartoons is my point I'm going to say. I love cartoons. But as far as this thrilling installment, the 28th installment, if you can believe it, of Switch to Ultra, very deep into October, I have been your co-parent, BH Ultra.
And I have been your co-parent, Switchy.
And I am hanging up the phone.
Bye.
That's pretty much it.
Bye.
Bye-bye.